Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Let's just jump right in, shall we? Today we're taking a highly visual journey through what I like to call the ultimate spectrum of dramatic reality. Since the absolute dawn of human civilization, we've had this deep, compelling need to tell stories. But not just by writing them down, right? We need to actually live them out on a stage. So today we're going to explore exactly how literature gets brought to life through action. We'll be breaking down the evolution and the architecture of 11 completely distinct dramatic forms. It's going to be a really fascinating ride, so definitely stick around. Okay, let's dive into this by looking at the actual root of the word itself. The word drama actually originates from the ancient Greek word drawn, and that simply translates to do or to act. Now, this is an absolutely crucial distinction. Unlike a novel or a poem that you might just read quietly in your head, drama is inherently active. It's a form of literature that is literally designed from the ground up to be performed. Whether that's on a physical stage in a theater or on a screen, it fundamentally requires human action to truly exist. Which brings us to a really compelling question. How exactly do we reflect human life on stage? Because when you think about it, ultimately, that is exactly what drama does. It takes our human emotions, our incredibly messy conflicts, and our complex relationships, and it puts them right under a spotlight for us to examine. So in this explainer, we're going to answer that question by looking at 11 completely distinct ways that humanity has figured out how to mirror itself. Let's move to our first major category.
Section 1. The classic extremes.
First up, we've got tragedy. Now, this is drama that portrays highly serious events, and it usually ends in deep suffering, disaster, or even death for the main character. The protagonist, often a tragic hero, usually has this fatal flaw, which is known as hamartia. Just think of Shakespeare's Hamlet. Hamlet is a prince seeking revenge for his father's murder, but his fatal hesitation and his intense internal conflict lead to just an absolute catastrophe. Tragedy is really designed to evoke pity and fear. It forces us to reflect on fate and our own human weaknesses. Contrast that with comedy, which is designed to entertain, to make us laugh, and crucially to deliver a happy ending. So instead of a tragic flaw, we get humorous situations, magical confusion, mistaken identities, kind of like what you see in Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. Comedy often uses wit and satire to critique human behavior, but hey, at the end of the day, it leaves us smiling. So what happens when you combine those two extremes? Well, you get tragicomedy. This form bridges the gap by mixing very serious situations with moments of humor. You get all the emotional ups and downs of a tragedy, but the characters ultimately manage to avoid complete disaster. A great example from our source material is The Winter's Tale. It starts with this intense, heavy jealousy and suffering, but it actually ends in forgiveness and a happy reunion. Tragicomedy is incredibly effective, honestly, because it accurately reflects real life, a place where happiness and sorrow are almost always existing right side by side. Moving right along, let's hit section 2, exaggeration and spectacle. Okay, let's look at 3 highly engaging forms of drama that are designed for maximum audience reaction. First up is melodrama. This is where emotions are just cranked up to 11. You have a crystal clear distinction between heroic good and villainous evil, crazy plot twists, and highly emotional scenes. If you've ever watched a daytime soap opera, you've watched a melodrama. Its entire purpose is suspense and keeping you hooked. Next, we have farce. This is pure absurd comedy. It relies heavily on super fast-paced action, totally improbable situations, and physical slapstick humor. Plays like The Importance of Being Earnest use these farcical misunderstandings purely to entertain us through sheer ridiculousness. And finally, we have musical drama. Here, the spectacle comes from combining spoken dialogue with songs and dance to actually advance the narrative. Think of The Phantom of the Opera. It's a massive, large-scale production designed to express deep emotion through soaring music.
Next up, Section 3. Society, Mind, and Meaning.
Here we are grouping together 3 very specific types of drama: historical drama, domestic drama, and the problem play. Now, what unites these 3 forms is their intense focus on society. They use realistic characters to dive deep into political, social, and moral issues. Whether they're staging real historical events to educate us or portraying everyday family conflicts, the goal is pretty much the same: to challenge traditional beliefs. These plays aren't just trying to entertain you. They actively want to promote intellectual discussion and push for real social reform. And this brilliantly illustrates how these society plays can operate on entirely different scales. On one hand, you have historical dramas like Julius Caesar, tackling massive, broad issues, exploring political conspiracy and the fate of an entire Roman Empire. Alongside it, you have the problem play, like George Bernard Shaw's Mrs. Warren's Profession, which sparked intense controversy by intellectually dissecting economics, women's rights, and prostitution. Contrast all of that with domestic drama, like Henrik Ibsen's A Doll's House. That play takes all of that intense social critique and places it directly inside the intimate reality of a single household, examining marriage, gender roles, and a desperate search for personal freedom. Both scales are trying to reform society. They're just doing it from very different vantage points. Now, as society modernized, drama kind of turned its focus inward, right into the mind itself. First is absurd drama, or the theater of the absurd. This form operates on the philosophical belief that human life actually lacks any clear meaning. The plots are unusual, the dialogue is highly repetitive, and the characters feel incredibly isolated. The perfect example here is Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot, where two characters simply wait endlessly for someone who literally never arrives. It's confusing, sure, but it forces us to ask some really deep existential questions. Contrasting that is modern drama. Emerging in the late 19th and 20th centuries, this form leans heavily into modern realism and psychological depth. Think of Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman. It uses everyday language to examine personal struggles, psychological conflicts, and the absolutely crushing social pressures of the modern world. Which brings us to our unifying conclusion. Section 4, the final act. It really all comes down to this one powerful idea. Drama is not just entertainment, it is a mirror of human life. Whether we're looking at the intense sorrow of a tragedy, the joyous laughter of a comedy, the sheer wild spectacle of a melodrama, or the gritty realism of modern drama, every single one of these 11 forms serves a very unique purpose. Collectively, they continue to reflect our deepest emotions, our greatest struggles, our grandest dreams, and all the messy complexities of our society. It truly is one of the most powerful forms of literary expression humanity has ever created. So, I have to ask you, which of these 11 forms feels like it best mirrors your life right now? Are you living in a fast-paced farce or maybe a hopeful tragicomedy? Jump into the comments and let me know. Seriously, I'd love to hear your thoughts. If this visual explainer helped you learn something new today or gave you a fresh perspective, please hit that like button, share it with a friend who might enjoy it, and absolutely subscribe to the channel so you never miss our future explainers. Thanks so much for watching and keep learning.